Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we begin Perek Sheni, the second Perek in the Rambam's Hilchos Machals Assuros, in the laws of forbidden foods to be eaten, which the Rambam in the first Perek opened up regarding what are the defining signs of what's kosher, what's not kosher. And this Perek, the Rambam defines those creatures that are these elements in the living creatures that are forbidden, and also regarding that of the Shratov. As Rambam begins Halacha Aleph regarding the prohibitions of the non-kosher animals and wild animals, says Rambam Machlal Shenem, from the fact that it says in the pasuk in Devarim, V'chol behema mafreses parsa, and any animal would split hooves v'sheisaz shesaz shtei parsa, totally split all the way into two different hooves, malas yera, and it chews its cud. Shemani, so from there I learned, shekol she'ena malas gero mafreses parsa, if it doesn't chew its cud and have split hooves, asura, it's forbidden. Now, says Rambam, v'lava bo machlal say, any negative prohibition that's inferred from a positive commandment, because here the Torah is telling you what yes to do. The inference is what you shouldn't do. But since it's inferred from a positive commandment, asehu, it has this negative prohibition has the strength, the force of a positive commandment. Now, v'gamal, we're going to get camel, the chazir, and the swine, the barnevis, the rabbit, the shofet, and the hare, which debatable exactly what they are. But nema, regarding these four, the Torah tells us, from these items you should not eat from those that chew their cud and have split hooves, which what the Torah is coming to teach you is shehim b'leis, to say there's a negative prohibition saying loy toichlu, don't eat them. Although these four are the four exceptions in the Torah, generally those that have two have both, those don't have neither one of them. These have one of them. One of them has the split hooves, that of the swine, and doesn't chew its cud, and the other three chew its cud and don't have split hooves. But for sure, all other non-kosher domesticated and wild animals, which they don't have any of the two simon at all, say that their negative prohibition is forbidden to be eaten. More than the positive commandment, which is inferred from, this you should eat, which is that has split hooves and that has chews its cud. It's more than that. It's saying loy toichlu, because we learn out if that which has one sign you shouldn't allow to eat, for sure that which doesn't even have any signs of a kosher animal, for sure you're not allowed to eat. Now halacha beis, lefikir, therefore, if someone eats that of the flesh of a wild or domesticated non-kosher animal, that of a kazais, of an olive, which is around an ounce, he gets biblical lashes. Whether he eats from the meat, whether he eats from the chaylev, in other words, because the negative prohibition of chaylev is only by a kosher animal. Here we're talking about that you're going to get the prohibition because not of eating chaylev, but eating a non-kosher animal, so it doesn't make a difference eating from the meat or eating from the fats. Because by the non-kosher animals, the Torah does not differentiate between the meat and the chaylev. Again, as long as you're eating a ksayis from whatever part of the animal it is, of the chaylev or the basar, one's going to get lashes. Now, Halacha Gimel, the Rambam talks about a different type of a chaya, that's, so to speak, not kosher. Ha'adam, regarding a person, a human being. Although the pasuk says in Bereishis, Vayhi Adam l'nefesh chaya, that the person is for a living beast. Ein mechlal min chaya balas parsa. It's not included in the different types of wild animals, of chayas, that have split hooves. It's not included in that, which we had said before, there's a negative prohibition to eat the non-kosher animals if you don't have both signs. Now, lafikach, therefore, in other words, because we're not including the human being in that parsha, does not have a negative prohibition of a zeloi taichlu. Now, if someone eats from a human flesh or from his fats, whether it's from a living human being or from a dead human being, he's not going to get lashes because you don't have a negative provision. There's no loisase on the human being. Now, but there is a violation of a positive commandment. Because the Torah delineated, as we said in the previous parak, the 7 types of wild animals that are kosher. It says regarding them Vayikra, this is the wild animal that you should eat. Now, how kosher chutzman, the inference is anything that's besides them, you should not eat. And the negative prohibition that's derived from a positive commandment has the force of a positive commandment, and the human being is not one of those 7 chayas. So though he's not included in the non-kosher chayas, there's no loisa say to get lashes, but he's definitely a derivation of the positive commandment of which chayas you should eat, which do not include that of a human being. Now, Allah Ram continues regarding the prohibition of eating non-kosher fish and fowl. which Rambam says, if someone eats a kazayis from the flesh of a non-kosher bird, like it gets lashes from the Torah, meaning biblical lashes, like it says in the pasuk, this should be an abomination from the birds, should not be eaten, which are the non-kosher types. Moreover, also violates the positive commandment. Shlomo says the pasuk in Devarim called tzibur Torah techelu, all kosher bird you should eat. Hatamei like techelu. The inference is, but the non-kosher bird you should not eat. Which again, as lovable Machlal say, is asay. So too, if someone eats a kazayis, a size of an olive, from non-kosher fish, like it gets lashes. Like says the pasuk in Yikra, it should be an abomination for you. Some say chelu, don't eat from its flesh. And also, I'll say, it violates the positive commandment. Like says the pasuk in Devarim. It says, whatever has fins and scales, you should eat. The inference is that the non-kosher fish that don't have fins and scales, one should not eat. So halamata, you learn from this. So if someone eats non-kosher fish, or or non-kosher behemoth and so if tamei or non-kosher bird, bittul mitzvah to say he nullified the positive commandment, and he violates the negative prohibition, each one respectively. Now halacha the Ram continues regarding the Isser of Sheratov, which we defined these terms in the previous parak, and now the Ram defines them. This of the Sheratov, as the Ram says, halacha chag of tamei, he says a non-kosher locust is harei b'chlal Sheratov, is included in the category of the prohibited sherets, the teeming birds. And v'oichel gizayis m'sheretz oiv, and whoever eats a gizayis from the sheretz oiv is like it gets lashes. Like it says in the pasuk, v'choil sheretz oiv tamehu lechem, and all the shratzim of the oiv, the flying, the teeming creatures, tamehu lechem, it's not kosher. V'yu lo yechelu, should not be eaten. V'ezeu sheretz oiv, what's considered a flying sheretz? Could go in, for example, zvuv, a fly, a yatush, a mosquito, a betzira, a hornet, a devar, a bee, and things like that. Those are considered sheretz oiv, and those are a separate isser in the Torah. Now, halacha vav, the Rambam talks about the is of sheretz ha'aretz. As the Rambam says, if someone eats a kizayis, an olive size of a sheretz, the teeming creatures that are in the ground, like he gets lashed, like it says in the pasuk, sheretz ha'aretz, sheketu, all these teeming creatures that they crawl on the ground, these tiny little creatures, they're an abomination. Lo yachol, they should not be eaten like the pasuk in the Yikra. Now, v'ezeu sheretz, what's considered a shratzim of the ground, could be nechashim like snakes, v'akrabim and scorpions, v'chipusim and beetles, v'nodal, centipedes, v'gizmim, things like that. Those are considered in the category of shratzim. Now, halacha zayin, actually, shmoyne shratzim amur b'Torah. There are actually 8 specific shratzim that are mentioned in the Torah Shem. They are hacheled, the weasel, v'achbar, and the mouse, v'atzav, the ferret, v'anokah, the hedgehog, v'koich, the chameleon, v'altah, and the lizard, v'achemet, the snail, v'atenchames, and the mole. If someone eats from their flesh the size of a lentil, like he's going to get lashes, and Shear chalasim Shear timasim, the measurement of what, like we just spoke about, of the prohibition of the eating is the same measurement as their tumah, which is also kadosh, that of a lentil. And makul mitzarfim zeh mezeh bekadosh, and they all combine one with the other to put together the measurement of violating and get lashes, the measurement of a lentil. Now halacha ches. But when do we say this? Only if you ate from these shratzim after they died. But if it lets you cut off a limb from that one that was living shratzim and you ate it, you're not going to get lashes at Shiba Kazai's buster until you eat not that of a lentil, but rather the size of an olive of flesh. And but all the Avrim and the Chaim and the Shratzim, they all combine for the Shear of Kazais. Now, if you ate a full limb from the Sheretz after it died, then in a look at Shiba Kazaish, and then you're not going to get lashes until it has the measurement of a lentil because now it's already dead. Halacha test. Dam shmein shratzim ubisar mitzarf lakadash. The blood of these shmein shratzim, these 8 shratzim teeming creatures that we spoke about, and some in their flesh, then it's something like this. They combine for that shit, like we said, of a lentil. But who that is? As long as the blood is attached to the flesh, and so to the blood of the snake, which is one of the shratzim not explicitly mentioned in the Torah. And it's that, therefore its shear is not a kadosh, but rather that of a kazayis. Its blood combines with its flesh for that of a kazayis of an olive to get lashes on it. And the reason is because the flesh is not considered separate from its blood. And even though the blood itself is not mitame, only the flesh is. But it combines with the shear achila of adasha. And but you have similar type of halachas mishar shratzim from other shratzim she'in mitame, they're not mitame. The same thing is that they combine. Now, halacha yud. Dam shratzim sheparsh. Now, however, if the blood of the sheretz had already been separated from the sheretz, and then you actually gather the blood and you eat it, like a lebekazais, here the lash is going to be the size of an olive, even from the Shemona Shratzim that the measurement is kadasha, because again it's not attached anymore to the flesh to have the shear of nadasha. Now, but this is that the person is going to get lashes if he drinks the blood the size of Gezayis. She has to buy mishum oichel sheretz. So what did they warn them? You have to have asra before you get a punishment if you're going to get for violating what you did. If they warned him for eating a sheretz, and the blood is considered part of that sheretz. But if let's say they warn them because you're not allowed to drink blood, pate is actually going to be exempt. The issue that the Torah talks about, you're not allowed to drink blood, is specifically the blood of a behema chay ba'oif. Here it's a sheretz. The reason why he's getting lashes for drinking the blood is not because of blood per se of dam, but because it's the blood of a sheretz, and it's like he's eating a sheretz. That's why it has to be the warning of oichel sheretz. Halach Yadav, the Rambam clarifies, says kol hashiyurim machlokosam, all the measurements and all their divisions that we speak about, halach measurements, that all halach is a tradition of Moshe Sinai, and that's what we get, that there's adasha, this is a k'zayis, and so on and so forth. Now, halach Beis, the Rambam continues regarding the isser of sheretz hamayim. We spoke about sheretz ha'oif, sheretz ha'aretz, and now sheretz hamayim. As the Rambam says, halach Beis ha'oichel k'zayis m'sheretz hamayim. Somebody eats an olive this from an aquatic sheretz. Like when the Torah, he gets biblical ashtos, like it says in the pasuk, al teshaktus nafshei seichem. Don't disgust your souls b'chol hasheretz with any crawling creature. V'lei titam b'hem, and don't become defiled with them. Now, harikol b'lav zeh. So, including this negative prohibition, it just says sheretz. You have included sheretz ha'aretz, the sheretz from the ground, the sheretz that flies in the ear, the sheretz hamayim, and the sheretz that's in the water. So the Rambam explains. So therefore, this is where the source of the lashes of the sheretz hamayim is. Now, is there a sheretz hamayim? What's considered a sheretz of the water? So these are the small little creatures, like the worms, valuka, and the leeches that are in the water. And it's also the very large creatures. They're the beasts of the sea. Because as Rambam explained, the main idea is, the rule of this is, whatever does not have the form of fish, not the form of kosher fish or non-kosher fish, it has a totally different elements, like the mammals of the sea. So it's called the dog of the sea, which is the seal, the dolphin and the dolphin, and the frog, and things like that. So either the very small ones, like the worms and the leeches, or the very big ones, those are included in the sheretz hamayim. Now, halachah given the Rambam continues regarding, we spoke about sheretz ha'aretz, now we speak about the remes ha'aretz. As Rambam explains, there are certain species that are created from garbage dumps and from the bodies of dead carcasses. For example, rima basileia, maggots, worms, things like that. They're not born from copulation of a male and a female. Rather, it's from filth that spoils and things like that, and flies come from that. Those are called not sheretz alaretz, but remes alaretz. That refers to those creatures that come from the garbage. Some of these from them are kazayis. Like it gets lashed, like it says in the pasuk, don't defile your soul. From any shirts that is remes that crawls on the ground. Now, and this even so that they don't reproduce. Now, shirts has sheretz, but the teeming that swarm on the ground. Who should that those are creatures that they proliferate from a male and a female. That's a sheretz, and this is a remes that's not from the generation is from that of the garbage, not of a male and female. Now, Rambam continues something similar regarding the shratzim that come from fruits. Then there's certain ones that come specifically that they're created in fruits and in food items. So here it depends. In if they separated from the fruit and they came out to the ground. So even if they come back into the food item, someone eats from that bug a kazayis, like he's going to get lashed, like it says in the pasuk, for any shirts that crawls on the ground, come to forbid, even though it's the generation was from the actual fruit, but since it came down to the ground, it's considered shirts alarts. But if it never separated from the fruit, then mutter lechel hapri b'talasha b'tech. And then you could eat the fruit with the worm inside that apple. You could eat the worm that was inside. Now, Lachat Azvav says Rambam, when do we say this? It's only if the food became wormy after it was ready to detach from the ground. But it became wormy when it was still attached to the ground. So that worm, Assuros kilo parshlarts, is forbidden as if it had separated to the ground. Shala or it's never, it's because it's connected to the ground and it's considered created from the ground. And you get lashes in it. Now, if it's and you're not sure, so Asura, it's forbidden. As you're not sure did it become wormy after it was attached or not, so it's going to be forbidden. Now, lefikach there because subject there is lefikach therefore, kol many perish shadarkim lasli kashem mulchaban. So it says Rambam, therefore all types of fruits that the norm is that they become wormy when they're still attached to the ground. Lo yechad sheyiv tekapri metechi. You're not supposed to eat that food until you check the fruit from inside. Shemish mutalas. Maybe there's a worm inside. Now, but let's say the fruit already was tarried already, it was held on already after it was detached from the ground, already a period of 12 months. Then you can eat that food without checking it. Because even if the worm had been there when it was attached to the ground, it wouldn't last 12 months that it's already been since it was already detached from the ground. Rather, it would decompose, it would be like dirt, like dust, and it wouldn't be a problem about the isser of eating that worm. Now look at the zayin. Let's say partial avrav. Let's say this worm went out to the ear space, but it didn't touch the ground. Or part of it touched the ground. Or it only became detached from the fruit after it already died. Or you find the worm not in the fruit itself, but on the seed that's in the fruit within. Or it left one fruit into another fruit. So all these are prohibited out of doubt because we don't know exactly how to define the criteria exactly, and therefore it's forbidden because of the doubt. But one does not get lashes because of a suffix isser if he violated that. Now regarding worms that are found in the intestines of fish, or in the brain that's in the head of an animal. That's what's found in the flesh of an animal. Assuros, these are forbidden because these find their ways in from outside into the animal, and they're forbidden like all worms. Now, regarding salted fish that became wormy, the worm that's inside is permitted together with the worm that's still because it's attached to inside. These are like the case that we brought before regarding fruits that became wormy after it was already detached from the ground. You're allowed to eat all as one with the worms inside. Here also, the salted fish, this is the worms from within, and therefore this never came out. This is going to be forbidden. Now, the same thing the Rambam continues regarding certain times that Sheratov are permitted. So too, the water in vessels that has these teeming creatures inside. You're allowed to drink those shratzim together with the water. Like it says in the pasuk, that any which has the skins and the fins and the scales, in the water, bayam in the seas, and the chalam and in the streams, those fish you're allowed to eat. Now, what that means to say is, in the waters and in the seas and in the streams, that's where you're allowed to eat those fish, those creatures, those aquatic creatures that have fins and scales. But the inference is not eat those that don't have it. But that's only in the seas and the streams and so on. Regarding waters in vessels, whether it has fins and scales or doesn't, it's going to be permitted. And therefore, it says regarding the aquatic sherets, that are created in the cisterns, in the trenches of Amoris, in the caves, since they're not flowing water, they collected waters, therefore they're like water in the vessels that we spoke about in Frias Halacha, which is going to be permitted. He can bend down, he can drink, and he doesn't have to hold himself back. Even though when he's drinking these small little bugs, it doesn't make a difference. There's no isser in that at all. Now, halacha test as Rambam, when we say this, if they never had separated from the place where they were created, which was in the water, in the still waters, in these gathered waters, in the buckets or in these pits. But if the sheretz already had detached, so even if it went back into the vessel, back into the pit, then the asur is already going to be forbidden. Now, let's say separate only to the walls of the barrel. And then falls back into the water or into the beer. That's considered normal, that's considered still part of the water. So to be separated to the walls of the pit or to the cave and went back into the water, mutter, that's going to be permitted. Now, halacha chav, so therefore if someone sifts, he's straining the wine, or the vinegar, or the beer, when he eats the insects, or the bugs, and the worms, that he had sifted out, like a he's getting lashes for eating the aquatic shratzim, where that would be by yavchushim, or for sheretz that would be by the atushim, by the mosquitoes, which it's a sheretz because the flies in the air, but since it's created from the water, it also is considered a sheretz hamayim. Now, even if it went back into the vessel after he had sifted it, because like we said, kids already was detached from the place where it was created. But if he didn't sift it, he could drink the wine, the beer, with the bugs inside, and he doesn't have to hold himself back, like we said, because these things emanated from these areas, and therefore they don't have that isser. Now, halacha vav, the Rambam qualifies this that we kept on saying that if someone eats the shear v'kezayis, says this is what we said in this chapter. If someone eats an olive of this forbidden bug, let's say, we're talking about where he eats an olive size from a large creature, or he collected a little bit from this creature and a little bit from this creature, as long as from the same species, until he ate a kezayis of it. That's what we said that he's going to be chayiv if he eats a kezayis. Now, let's say he eats an entire non-kosher creature. He's going to get lashes biblically, even if it's less than that of a mustard seed, let alone that of a kezayis. Because it's a complete creature, then he's going to get, so although we kept on saying it's a kezayis, that's if you eat part of a larger creature or a little bit of a bunch of small ones and you're putting it together kezayis. But if you eat the whole thing, then even if it's less than a mustard seed. And ben shachala mesab, ben shachala chai, whether he eats it dead or whether he eats it alive, and even if the creature has already started decomposing and changed its form, since he eats the whole thing in its entirety, Laika is going to get lashes. So in halacha base is around the mullah shachas afal akal margalev. If you have an ant that's missing even one of its feet, well, ain't no like a because again, it's not. At least we don't know with veracity that it is. It's not considered an entire creature, and therefore you're not going to get lashes unless it has the shear b'kezayis. Now, so the fikr therefore says the Rambam, since again you get lashes if you eat a full creature, so the Rambam gets into discussion regarding when it's entirety and also regarding combinations. So therefore, if someone eats a complete fly, or yat shalom, a complete mosquito, ben chay ben meis, whether alive or dead, like a mishum sheretz ayv, he's going to get lashes because of the sheretz that flies in the air like a bird. Now, Allah chav gimel. Now, let's say the creature was from the shrotzim of the ayf, it flies, and it comes from the water, and it crawls on the ground. You're going to try to look in the fire, like the Rambam explained. It had wings, and it walks on the ground like other bugs, and it reproduces from the water. So it has all three characteristics. And he eats this one creature, like a shosh makis, he gets 3 sets of lashes for those 3 yisurim of sheretz ayf, sheretz amayim, sheretz haaretz. Now, let's say it had even more than this. It was minaminim sheniver beperes. It's from the types of bugs worms that come from fruits. Well, look, Rambam is going to get 4 sets of lashes, one for that creature which comes specifically from the fruits. Now, if it's type of species that reproduces, like a chumash, you get a 5th set of lashes, which is that type specifically, it's part of a rabba. Now, if it was from those of a non-kosher bird, so yes, I'll use some sheretz ayf. This is more than just being a sheretz ayf. It's also an actual ayf that's tummy from one of the non-kosher birds we mentioned in the Torah. Like a shesh malchus. Then he's going to get 6 sets of malchus. Mishum ayf tummy for non-kosher bird. Mishum sheretz ayf being a sheretz that flies. Mishum sheretz ayf, the sheretz that goes in the ground. Mishum sheretz ayf for the sheretz that from the water. Mishum remis that it's from the remasim that goes on the ground. Umishum telasa paris, and like we said, because we have one for the reproduced one, the one that doesn't, which comes from the garbage. So it could have both of those, and umishum telasa paris, because it's the one that comes from the paris. And beishachalakula, whether if he eats all of it, which because it's an intact creature, or if he eats a kezayis of it, he's going to get those 6 lashes. Therefore says the Rambam, if someone eats an ant, haparachas, that flies, a flying ant, that comes from water. Look, a chamash malchus, he can get 5 sets of lashes. Not going to get the one from the pears, but he's going to get the 5 sets of lashes. Now, lochach of dalat says the Rambam. Let's say risik nimal. Let's say someone crushed ants. So once he crushed it, so it doesn't have any more of the characteristic as a berry, as a creature, and it's because it's not an intact ant. So he crushed a bunch of ants. Now he brought one whole ant that combined to those who had been crushed. Now altogether they're a kezayis and he eats them. So like a shesh malchus, he's going to get 6 sets of lashes. One, he's going to get 5 for that one ant, because like we said in the previous halacha, you could have an ant that you can be chayav 5 sets of lashes. But one's going to be for the olive of all those other dead, crushed bugs. Which the Rambam doesn't mean when he says over here nivlas atmeim, the nevela of the non-kosher ones. He doesn't mean from the isav leisichel called nevela, because that's only by kosher animals, as the Rambam says later on Perek Halacha Beis. And here we're talking about, so to speak, a nevela of non-kosher from these ants. Rather, he means to say for the isav shrotzim of al tashakshas nafshesechem, like the Rambam said in Halacha Yud Beis. Here, since they're crushed, again, it has to be only with the shear of a kezayis. You're going to get the one generic isser of al tashaktu, but for the live one, he's going to get the 5 sets of lashes for being that of this, as we said in the previous halacha, for this ant that you can get 5 lashes, and together with the gezayas of all the other ones, so you have that 6th one of the Issa of Shwartzberg.